Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Rob's Movie Reviews. Now, before I get started this week, I'd just like to take a quick moment to say if you like what you're seeing on this channel, please hit the like button and subscribe. Now, I'd like to review for you a film this week. It was released in 1961. It's considered by many people to be a classic, although I personally don't feel it belongs in that category. I found it to be mildly entertaining, but not a classic. But regardless of how I feel about it, I'm talking about the 1961 film Breakfast at Tiffany's. It stars Audrey Hepburn, George Peppard, Mickey Rooney, and Buddy Epson. The Mickey Rooney character, take a moment to discuss that. Uh, by today's standard, would definitely be considered racially offensive at the very least. He plays a Oriental landlord that owns the building that Audrey Hepburn's character lives in. And given the context of the fact that the film was released in 1961, there wasn't a whole lot of Oriental actors in Hollywood at that time. The few that weren't big names, and they wanted as many big names, I guess, as they could get for this film to put for box office draw power. But still, Mickey Rooney as a Japanese man was a little racially offensive. But now, with that being said, the film, like I said, it stars Audrey Hepburn in the main role. She plays Holly Golightly, young woman living in New York by herself. She meets a man that just moved into her building, played by George Peppard, who, as we find out later in the film, turns out to be a gigolo. And she befriends him, and they kind of strike up a awkward relationship. They become pretty good friends. They spend a lot of time together. They share a lot of personal feelings and secrets with one another. And about 2/3 of the way through the film, George Peppard finds out that Audrey Hepburn's character is actually married, that she hasn't been 100% honest with him, that she ran away from her husband and children, left them back in, I believe it's Kansas. He finds this out because her estranged husband, played by Buddy Epson, shows up looking for her. And at first, she decides that she's going to go back home with him, but then she changes her mind and he leaves and goes back without her. And then she gets the news that her brother has passed away, and this really upsets her very severely and causes a falling out between her and George Peppard. And for a long time, they don't speak to one another. And they eventually reconcile toward the end of the film. He helps her, get over the loss of her brother, and she again decides that she wants to go back home. But it's by this point that George Peppard realizes that he's very much in love with her, and eventually ends up convincing her to stay in New York and for them to give their relationship a try, because as much as she doesn't want to admit it to herself, she's in love with him as well. And that's pretty much the story of Breakfast at Tiffany's. It's not a very complicated, complex storyline. It's rather simple. There's some good humorous moments in it. Most of the comedy relief, of course, is provided by Mickey Rooney's character, which he is quite funny. Despite the fact that his character is racially offensive, he is quite funny, and he gives the movie some good humorous relief when it needs it. And Audrey Hepburn and George Peppard have a few humorous scenes themselves, but overall, it's kind of a long, drawn out story that's not very complex. Could have been told a lot more efficiently. It's based on a novel, of course. I haven't read the book. I can't imagine the book being any better. than the movie, far as how the story is presented. Of course, that's just again me guessing. It may actually be a really good book. I don't know. I need to go out and get it and read it. But I just wasn't superly impressed with the movie. It was a fun watch. It was enjoyable, but it was by no means, in my opinion, a classic. So that's my review of Breakfast at Tiffany's. And you join me back here next week. I'll have another review for you. And until then, you all take care.